Joining us now, former Secretary of Homeland Security and one-time Attorney General of Arizona, Janet Napolitano. She's the author of the new book, How Safe Are We? Homeland Security Since 9/11. Good to have you on board this morning.
Thank you so much for being with us. Secretary, let's begin with your take on what everybody's talking about this morning, and that is, of course, the Attorney General's letter about Robert Mueller's report.
You know, one of the things that I take from this is the conclusion that while there may not have been actual collusion, the Russians were all over our election in 2016. They were planting the seeds of discord and unrest. They were hacking and releasing materials from the DNC, from the Clinton campaign. And from a Homeland Security perspective, I would ask, what are we doing to prevent this? This activity is still going on. What are we doing to tighten up with state electoral systems? What are we doing with the main platform providers, the Facebooks and the Twitters? What are we doing to sanction Russia, to say, you know, stay out of our democracy? And so, you know, one of the things I would like to see out of this is greater activity looking forward. What are we doing to prevent this from happening again so that we have confidence in the 2020 election?
David Ignatius, great questions. And of course, you have Kirstjen Nielsen, who is now the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, saying Vladimir Putin interfered with American democracy in 2016. And he's trying to do it again. That's the same conclusion the FBI and the DNI and you name it, military intel, they all came to the same conclusion.
I want to take the question back to Secretary Napolitano. I think you said it just right, that there is this threat to our political system, our elections. That's one of the strongest findings that Mueller came up with. Madam Secretary, what do you think ought to be done going forward? We have a president who really hasn't accepted the breadth of Russian interference. What should be done going forward to really get more serious about this? Well,
I would like to see, number one, the president to speak out and to say definitively this is not acceptable, and that we as a nation of laws will not accept a foreign country interfering directly in our elections. I would like to see the president call on all the agencies of the federal government who touch on cybersecurity to come back together and to make sure they organize their overlapping and sometimes conflicting jurisdictions. I'd like to see Congress focus on this issue more, and I'd like the country to consider what additional sanctions need to be imposed on Russia for this behavior.
You would kind of think, Mr. Napolitano, that the idea that this Mueller report has cleared President Trump of the idea of collusion with Russia would give him the impetus to finally say something that every American intelligence agency has found, and now the Mueller report has found, that there was Russian considerable, probably ongoing attempts to interfere with our democracy, which in virtue is in fact kind of a declaration of war against our democracy.
Well, absolutely. And one of the points I make in my book, How Safe Are We, is the point that these kinds of issues, the use of cyber networks to intervene in our democracy, those are real threats to Homeland Security. I also do say that, you know, building a wall on the southwest border is a distraction from these things that are the real threats that we have to confront.
And you would know, Arizona.
I do know that very well. You know, building a wall is a symbol, it's not a strategy. And the border needs to be managed, the rule of law needs to be imposed, no doubt about that. But focusing the whole nation's attention on a simple physical structure, that is not an effective strategy.
All right, the book is How Safe Are We? Homeland Security Since 9/11. Former Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano, thank you very much for being on this morning.
Thank you.
And still ahead, President Trump claims that he was, quote, totally exonerated by Mueller's findings. And this morning, his press secretary doubled down on that talking point. We'll have new reaction from Hardball's Chris Matthews. Morning Joe is back in 2 minutes.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.